In here to see if it shows up. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, so we're live on YouTube and Rumble. Welcome to the live stream. So I don't see the comments yet on this thing here. There we go. So yeah, so now seeing the comments. Welcome guys, welcome to this broadcast. And again, the format is I talk for 30 minutes about the stated topic. And then the next hour will be dedicated to Q&A, and you can have your questions answered from both Rumble and YouTube. And in the first half an hour, I'm not going to interact with the comments yet because I want to do it like a monologue where I talk about the stated topic. So the topic tonight is about the last video. In the last video, if you recall, was about the GPS leak. And this has, by the way, been very, very confusing. It's a very advanced topic, and it's obviously not well understood. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what I said, and there's certain things I did say directly and implied, and some of this is not clear. And even the experts in cybersecurity were a little bit left wondering. So I'm going to fill in the blanks to some of this. Not that we have all the answers, but we can make certain assumption about what some of the answers are. So we're going to go through that. Okay, so again, to summarize the video in kind of a nutshell, TLDR version, the issue is that all phones, normie phones, let's talk normie phones first, because we distinguish that from the Google phones. All normie phones, and I mean all, that means all of Google Android, the standard Google Androids, all of the iOS phones, every single one. Now, this does not include iPads, only one with a baseband modem. So baseband modem and GPS. And this only includes iPhones. It only includes all of the Android devices, regardless of manufacturer, as long as it has a GPS. Now, what happens is on all of these devices, if your GPS is going to work, and somebody said, what if I firewall this and that? We'll discuss that too to make sure it's clear. Now, if you understand the topic, what it's saying is that if GPS is to work, it has to have SUPL. And specifically, it has to have supl.google.com. Okay? Otherwise, GPS will not work in a quick way. I'm not even sure it will work, because I think it may be a program to require SUPL. Okay, so it's up to the programmer. The programmer could say, I am not going to work with any app that doesn't have SUPL, or I will work only with app that has NLP of a certain kind, which I will talk about later. I did not discuss this in the video, but it's up to some apps. The apps can actually dictate if they're going to be using a certain level of capability with GPS. So if the app says, I'll take any location, doesn't matter what it is, and I let the operating system decide what that's supposed to be. And if the operating system allows use of GPS without SUPL, then it would take a couple of minutes to acquire a GPS position. Okay, so but that's probably not realistic. They may even disable that, so it may not even work with most apps. So for GPS to work fine, it needs SUPL. Now here's the problem: in order for SUPL to work, it needs two possibilities. SUPL is on the internet. It can only be accessed on the internet. So for SUPL to work, it needs one, a Wi-Fi connection, so it can go to the internet and go to SUPL. Or if it doesn't have that, it needs a cell data account, or it's not going to be able to go to the internet. So it needs cell data or Wi-Fi, or both. So let's say you said, well, I'm not going to connect to Wi-Fi. So you go to your phone and you disconnect the Wi-Fi, and you do not have a SIM card. Or some operating systems like Brax OS will actually allow you to disconnect the SIM card from the software. But let's just say that you have a device that you can't do that, like Apple. So if you can't disconnect the SIM card, as long as there's a SIM card in there and there's no Wi-Fi, then the phone will connect to SUPL through the baseband modem, through the data side of the connection, the data side of the cell data connection. If you take the SIM card out and you have no Wi-Fi, SUPL's not going to work. In theory, then the GPS should not work. And you can try that. So some of you will say, well, my GPS doesn't work. Well, do you have a Wi-Fi connection? Do you have cell data? Or did you not even put a SIM in because you're just trying to test it and you turn off the Wi-Fi? You have to actually be logged into the Wi-Fi. It's not about Wi-Fi being present. You have to be logged into Wi-Fi. Otherwise, it's going to go through the data channel if there's an account. If there's no account, then the GPS isn't going to work. So again, to make it clear, SUPL is the way GPS works on the phone, which is called assisted GPS or AGPS. So assisted GPS means it's GPS assisted by SUPL, SUPL, Secure User Plane Location, which is basically a database that says where the satellites are. If you do not tell the phone where the satellites are, it's going to have to dig for where the satellites are by trial and error. A standalone GPS device may be able to do that. I do not know if the phone is programmed to do it without SUPL. And you can try. You can take off the SIM card. I didn't do this test. I guess I could. Take off the SIM card. Do not put any Wi-Fi and see if GPS even works at all. So I don't know. If it does work, it should take 1 to 2 minutes to connect outdoors. It should not work indoors at all. Outdoors only. So that is the meaning of this SUPL thing. Now there's a lot of implications in here. When you're using a standard normie phone, Google Android or iPhone, then you have to understand that SUPL is hard-coded. There's not a spot in settings where you can say, I don't want to go to supl.google.com, I want to go to someplace else. You can't do that. It's actually in the source code. There's no way to alter that. So there's no way to alter SUPL. So on Android, it's hard-coded in Android. The only way that you can remove it from the source code is if you use a de-Googled phone where not all of them do this, where the developer of the OS, the Android open source project source code, took out SUPL and put something else in there. And they can't just take it out. You can't just say, I'm going to remove supl google.com and go to another one that I know of, which is supl. Some of the carriers have one. Let's see. So let's just, for the sake of discussion, I don't know if they have a supl, but let's say supl.attnt.com if they have a supl, or supl.cisco.com. They probably do have a supl. So because it's hard-coded in there, you can't mess with this. The other thing is it's because it's deep into the operating system, there is no user interface to touch this at all. Now, what are the implications of this from the SUPL side? What are the implications of this? The implications of this is that every phone made by Apple and using Google Android, made by whoever, like your Samsungs or LG or HTC or OnePlus, whatever it is that's made by somebody else, your Motorola, all of them, every single one has to go use SUPL, or the GPS isn't going to work. Now, this is nothing new. They were doing this since 2007. The first iPhone was already using SUPL, or assisted GPS. So this is nothing new. So back then they were just using whatever the SUPL was, but what happened was Google bought the patent for SUPL. So SUPL used to be some other company, and now SUPL is Google. SUPL is now Google. I don't know when they purchased. I got to look that up. or some of you can look it up. I don't know when SUPL was purchased. They purchased the patent. I don't know when the purchase was made. Okay, I don't even know if they'll show up on the internet. So they purchased the patent, and so now they own all the SUPLs. They only Google can authorize a SUPL because it's a patent they own. So nobody can just say, oh, I'm going to make my own SUPL. Well, not going to work. Now, what is SUPL exactly? Like I said, they just take the satellite stuff, they download the data from every satellite, puts it into the database, and so by doing that, then they know where every satellite is at any point in time, because each satellite is reporting their position. When you connect using SUPL, what actually happens is the SUPL code takes your tower location. Now, this is very key here, and this is the real leak. They take your tower location by taking your MCC, MNC, and cell ID, which is identifying a tower and the carrier. And then by identifying the tower and the carrier, they can say, oh, based on this, we know you're in Los Angeles and this little part with zip code, whatever the zip code is, and therefore the satellites are here. And then they give you the satellites that you're going to connect to, and there you go. Okay? So that's the leak. So this means there is not a phone in the world using standard SUPL that Google doesn't know its tower location, meaning how close it is to the tower. Now, as I said in the video, fortunately, the tower location isn't exact. The tower location just gives you, roughly around a 3/4 mile range. So they have a little bit of window now. If you're in a rural area, that 3/4 mile is probably very identifiable. But in a city, 3/4 mile is pretty big. So yes, you can say, oh, that's not too risky. Now, yeah, this is the part that's important. It may not be too risky in a city with a lot of people with 3/4 mile, but what is sent with SUPL is the IP address, the IPv4 address of the connection, which is not that meaningful on cell data, and I'll explain that in the next video. It's not that meaningful. It just means you're in a certain area, and but the main part that is kind of crazy is that it will likely be passing the IMSI, or your mobile subscriber ID. So that's the part that's kind of dangerous, as well as a user agent that defines what kind of phone you have. So Google will know every phone, every model, and saying, oh, this is an iPhone, this kind of iPhone 6S, and it's trying to get SUPL data with this IP address and with this IMSI. So they can actually say, okay, we'll sort the data by IMSI and can kind of see which towers you've been going to all day. Okay, so that's that data. So if you can say that the SUPL part of this may not be that extreme, and it's true, the SUPL isn't that extreme, but the SUPL part of this is just one part of the equation. The next part of the equation is the SUPL is just the starting point because it gives a GPS position. The next part of the equation with location is called NLP, or network location provider, and this is the more dangerous part. This is where the Wi-Fi triangulation and all that come in, and tower triangulation. This is the exact location that powers location within 6 feet. Okay, tower location probably a little bit more, maybe 100 feet, maybe a couple of 100 feet. But with Wi-Fi triangulation, it's 6 feet. Okay, that's the actual standard for Wi-Fi triangulation, is 6 feet. Now, the problem again is that on a standard phone, this cannot be turned off. So these two things you can't turn off. Now, again, some of you panicked, and you said, well, you're saying that this is a problem with all phones. So what makes a Brax phone or a Calyx phone or a Lineage OS phone? What about those? Degoogled. Lineage OS degoogled. Okay, let me explain a few things here, and so we're very clear with this. Okay, so Lineage OS uses supl.google.com. Okay, they did not take it out because they don't know what the alternative is. So they don't mess with it. Lineage OS still uses supl.google.com. I just want to make that clear. In which case, every Lineage OS is subject to tower identification. It can tell what tower you're in and may get the IMSI. Is that significant enough data? Not necessarily, I suppose, by itself. It's not the end of the world. It just tells you, where you are. If you're a journalist or somebody trying to hide in a certain way, saying that you're within a quarter of a mile may be a problem. May be a problem. For the average person in a big city, 3/4 of a mile, may not be too significant of a problem. And you may say, okay, SUPL itself is not significant of an issue. Now, Lineage OS keeps the original SUPL. Brax OS does not. Brax OS uses a proxy. So what Brax OS does is it passes the SUPL data through a proxy server. And fortunately, there's an open source proxy server on GitHub. And then the proxy server then redirects that SUPL request to a SUPL provider. In this case, it's not Google. It's in our case, we use Vodafone. So Google doesn't get to collect the data. So the data goes elsewhere. So Google does not see any data from any Brax 2 phone because we don't go to their SUPL. Okay? We don't go to their SUPL. Yes, data is being collected by some SUPL with IMSI, but it's not Google. So, okay, you understand that thing there? So that's our way around this. I believe the other OSs that are more secure, like Calyx and so on, are also doing that. They're not necessarily a proxy, but they're redirecting to some other SUPL, not the Google SUPL, so that the Google does not collect the data. So Google itself can't collect the data because it's not going to their SUPL. Even though they own the patent, they don't own the server, so they don't get the data. So any one of the Google phones that you don't use the Google SUPL, and you have to hard code this into the operating system, meaning you have to compile it with whatever SUPL you're going to use, then they're fairly safe. This was not done on Lineage OS. So Lineage OS still uses supl.google.com. So Lineage OS is part of that database. So your tower location is known on Google. Google knows the location of a Lineage OS phone roughly by tower. Again, is this a serious problem? It depends if you think 3/4 of a mile is too close for comfort. If you believe that, then maybe you don't want to use anything like that and you stick to the more secure OSs, like Calyx and Brax OS and other varieties that I do not want to discuss. Okay, so does that make sense? So that's the idea of SUPL. Now, SUPL just powers the GPS. So with SUPL, GPS works. Okay, so if your GPS doesn't work, you have to ask yourself the question: is SUPL running, or did you firewall SUPL? Because you can firewall SUPL on the Wi-Fi side. You can firewall SUPL from the Wi-Fi side. I do not know if you can firewall SUPL from the data side because it may go through SS7. I do not know this because there's no code. We don't really know how it's going through the baseband modem. If it's going to the SS7 side, not the internet side, then it may be redirected and we may not be able to spot it. Okay, so it is not necessarily possible to verify independently if your SUPL is being protected if you firewall SUPL. But I think you're protected if you remove the SIM card. Or on a Brax phone, you can turn off the SIM. So when you disconnect the SIM, in theory, then SUPL will disconnect as well. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Now, SUPL is only powering the GPS. When you're indoors, nobody cares about SUPL or GPS. I just want to make this clear. When you're indoors, nobody cares about SUPL or GPS. So now you move indoors. Now what? When you're indoors, the next issue now becomes: indoor triangulation, and it's done two ways, as I said in the video: tower triangulation and Wi-Fi triangulation. Wi-Fi triangulation is provided only by two companies, Apple and Google. So Apple phones use Apple's Wi-Fi triangulation. Google phones use Google's triangulation. Okay? The Google phones do neither. In fact, GPS doesn't work indoors because there is no NLP provider. That's the provider of services for indoor geolocation is called an NLP, network location provider. That does not exist. What does exist on all phones, if you allow it, is called tower triangulation. Tower triangulation can be done on all phones, and that's also provided by Apple and also provided by Google, depending on the model of the phone. So all iPhones use the Apple NLP, network location provider. All Google Androids use the Google NLP. The Google phones have a choice. By default, Google phones do the Google phones do nothing. So, for example, Brax OS, Lineage OS, everything that comes from me, for example, has no location provider. So, in essence, they don't work indoors with GPS. So, if you use the Google phone and you say, "Oh, my location doesn't work indoors. It must be a defect on the hardware. I'm going to return it." No, because if you're indoors, it's not supposed to work. You can make it work, though I don't recommend that, but you can make it work. It's in the video at the end. Gives you instructions for apps to download, how to modify micro G, and then you can basically even add Apple to the Google phone and say, "Well, I really love the Apple tracking. I want to put Apple's NLP on the Google phone because I want to use Pokemon Go." You can actually do that. I mean, I don't recommend it, obviously, but it can be done. So if you put NLP on the phone, then your phone becomes powered by indoor triangulation of some sort, tower or Wi-Fi. Okay, so that hopefully that's clear. Now, we're running out of time here. What about independent devices? Do they use SUPL? Do they use NLP? And I'm talking here about, what about a car? What about a Tesla? What about a Garmin GPS? What about a Garmin GPS in a car? What about a hiking GPS that you have a handheld? Do they use, like a handheld GPS from Garmin does not use any Wi-Fi or anything. So how does that work? So again, to make this clear, it's just want to make this clear here. GPS can work without SUPL if it's designed to just work with trial and error on outdoors, and it can, like Garmin's from the old days are doing this. You just leave it open to the sky, and it will find the satellites within about 1 to 2 minutes. Okay. Now, so if your device is one that connects to the GPS in 1 to 2 minutes, there is no SUPL. And I don't know how they can get SUPL unless there's some sort of internet capability. But this is the strange part. You may not know that some devices, some IoT devices, may connect to 2G. For example, an Amazon Kindle from way back can download from Kindle without a subscription, and they're doing it via 2G. So there's some IoT services provided by some networks, probably T-Mobile, and they're able to do some slow connection. This was true of cars too. So cars may have an cars do have an internet connection at slow speed. They may have that. So in which case you may think there's no SUPL, but there may be SUPL. And again, the way you prove this is if it works instantly. So cars, the GPS works instantly, so you have to assume there has to be some SUPL. However, their SUPL does not have to be Google, because the specific operation of SUPL for mobile phones is what the patent is. I don't believe that applies to other kinds of devices. Okay? Now, the other thing that you need to understand is that many devices automatically have GPS. for example, Cisco routers apparently are sold with a GPS. Many Cisco routers are sold with a GPS so they can be found. Okay? So maybe for tech support purposes. And they connect to SUPL, but they connect to a Cisco SUPL. Okay? Does that make any sense now? So this is the issue. So some of you are worried about what I said here, and is a Brax phone safe? Because of course we can't stop SUPL on even a Brax 2 phone, because it'll go through the cell data. So you can even if you firewall SUPL, it will go to cell data. No, it is not a problem. It is not a problem on a Brax 2 phone because we don't use Google. So yes, it does go to SUPL, but it goes to, in our case, a proxy, and the proxy goes to Vodafone. Okay, so Brax OS is very safe. Brax OS not only is safe from that point of view, Brax OS does not come with any NLP by default. We will actually add an NLP for tower triangulation, locally supplied. There'll be a local database for tower triangulation, local only, so that if you want to use some app indoors for location, it can give some general location within, a couple hundred feet or so. So that we can provide, but that's by permission. If you don't give the app permission, then it won't do that. Okay, so that's the basic. I know this is, the video can't explain all this. Unfortunately, the video is already very complex. And if I try to explain this on the video, I would double the video time. So hopefully I kind of summarized what the effect is. So Brax 2 phones are in fact, it's probably the safest for the GPS leak. So we are very well prepared for this. In fact, before the phone was released, this is something we had been working on even way back then. When we released the phone in March, we were already, discussing the how we're going to handle SUPL. Okay, so this is nothing new. That was already known, and I also believe that the more secure the Google OSs I'm sure are handling SUPL in a safer way, meaning they're not going to Google. They're probably substituting something else in the source code. The exception being Lineage. So Lineage didn't touch that by choice. They decided they're not going to do it. Okay, so that makes any sense. So if you buy a Lineage OS Pixel 2 de-Googled from me, yes, it will use SUPL google.com. Yes, it will. Is that super dangerous? Not necessarily. It depends if you consider Google knowing who you are within 3/4 of a mile. If that really bothers you, then stick to a Brax 2 phone. Okay, so hopefully that explains that, and happy to be providing you this information. So again, this is new. People don't, somebody actually made a comment on my video saying that what I'm explaining here is FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I'm just fear mongering here. This is so zucking stupid. Okay? I mean, I'm giving you the detail. The reason I'm explaining all the SUPL, Google.com, and all the patents and all of the NLP and all this detail is to show you that I know what it is, and I'm telling you this. This is not fear mongering. I'm giving you zucking facts. It's up to you to take it. If you don't want to know it, then fine. Don't know it. Go buy your iPhone. Okay? I tell you stuff about the iPhone. Many of you, I told you stuff about the iPhone, and then you still go buy a iPhone 13, and you still are pre-ordering an iPhone 14. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm telling you these phones are really, really bad, but iPhone being the worst. Okay, iPhone's actually the worst one now. Used to be good. So, but now, they're the worst ones now. And they're actually communities who support some other de-Google OSs, and their second choice or their first choice is actually iOS, and they're so dumb. Okay, so please pay attention to me, and don't be a slave. Don't be buying any iPhone, because you will be a slave if you buy an iPhone. You're being subjected to all of the stuff that you cannot control. NLP on an iPhone is one thing, and then you got the Apple Mesh Network Okay, so it's actually double. You're being tracked by Bluetooth, and this is primarily on an iPhone, tracked by Bluetooth. That's why they're saying, oh, we'll have more location accuracy if you turn on Bluetooth. Zuck that. Okay? Zuck that. Put your zucking iPhone in a Faraday bag and forget it. And turn the zucking off in a bag. I have an old iPhone. It's in a Faraday bag. Okay? I use it only for testing, and then I put it back in the bag. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll stop there because it's going to be overly complicated. My next video will talk about something on the periphery of this, and that's about what does the carrier see? I think there's a lot of confusion about the carrier because we're always talking about big tech, Apple, Google, Facebook, this, that. But what does the carrier see? What are the risks with the carrier? What are the risks with the SIM cards? So the next video will talk about the carrier specifically to see if we have anything to worry about or nothing to worry about or lots to worry about or what we have to do. That is the next video, so please watch that next Wednesday. Thank you for this segment, and now I'm going to change to the Q&A section after a word from the sponsor that no longer show up for whatever reason. My sponsor image no longer shows up here, and I don't know why. Okay, so my sponsor is Linode. So Linode, I should just type that in here. I don't know why the graphic disappeared. Okay, so Linode is a cloud provider. So if you need a server, you often have many options. Some of you go to GoDaddy, some of you go to AWS, Amazon AWS, some of you go to Microsoft Azure, some of you go to Google Cloud, some of you go to some other ISP that provides servers. There's a ton of them. I've been involved with almost all of that. I've signed up with all of them. I had servers with all of those. I have a lot of servers, and I basically consolidated on Linode. And why did I consolidate on Linode? Because first of all, the price. So I wanted to, I have to make money on these servers. The servers are being used for services. And if they charge me too much, it's taking from the profit. So what is my choice? I want to, go to a server that's a little cheaper, and then the servers that are cheaper are from Linode. Now, that alone would be a good thing, but the thing is that the Linode company also happens to have the best tech support. To this day, and I've been with them for 2 years, to this day I have really nothing but positive things to say about their tech support. They have never failed me, never failed me, and I've had some problems and they help me resolve it. They don't complain about it, and they support me, and I have a more complex setup because I have a lot of servers, and they help me, and that's why I'm so willing to have Linode as my only sponsor. I don't really have any other sponsors on this channel currently other than Linode. So I recommend they use Linode, and if you want to utilize their credit with the Rob Braxman channel, just say linode.com/Rob Braxman, and they will give you a $200 credit, which you can use up within 2 months, and then you can try out their services, get your own service, get your own WordPress. You don't need a coder for WordPress. You can install WordPress. They can actually have a server already pre-installed. So that's available to you. Dynamic islands, all about privacy. Ha ha ha. Okay, yeah. Whatever. Dynamic islands of privacy. What are they? What are they selling you? What other thing are they selling you? Okay. So thanks for that, and now we're gonna go to your comments. I wonder if there are comments on. Hold on, let me just check if there are comments on. It disappeared. I thought Rumble was up, and now I don't see it. did I accidentally log out of Rumble? Oh, there's people on Rumble. Okay, there we go. Wow, there's a lot of people in Rumble. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of people in Rumble. Okay, there are 204 people on Rumble. My gosh, that's almost the same as YouTube here. Let me just see. How many are on YouTube? Hold on a second here. How many? This is so hard to there's 200 on YouTube, 200 on Rumble. Wow. Equal? That is impressive. Okay, so finally we figured out how to solve the Rumble problem. I had a problem getting my live streams and my videos visible on Rumble. We worked on it for the last few days, and I think we figured it out. Somebody was warning me that I was posting videos on the username and not the channel name, and Rumble is not owned by YouTube. Okay, Rumble is actually owned by a public company, or they're in the process of merging with a public company. So they can't comment live. Yes, they can, but it's hard for me to shift. So I got to go shift back and forth between Rumble comments and here more slowly because I can't really shift very fast. Okay, so let me go first to YouTube comments and see if there's anything here. I saw Rob just first time recommended by Rumble today. No, I've been recommended by Rumble, and then it paused because there were some issues. So it's back on again. Thank you, Larry McDonald. Thank you. So I have 7,500 subscribers on Rumble right now. So that kind of paused. That I was like down to like, I don't know, 6,000 and started growing again because they started putting me on top again. But that paused because of some technical issues. So it was something I didn't understand, and so they helped me and we got it all figured out. And the other thing that I may do on Rumble and still planning it out is to go on locals.com. So we can have a way for you guys to interact as a group and even leave comments on Locals. Okay, and Locals can be free. You don't have to be a member. A paid. You don't have to pay to be a member. Although there will be special features for paid members. So I am not set up yet for Locals, but I'm planning on doing that. Tim Taylor, yes, we can do special requests if you ask us to install some other OS. We can do it. You just have to make the request. Price is the same. Just make the request when you pay. Okay. I'm watching all Rob on Rumble except the stream. I'm here. Well, you can also watch the stream on Rumble now. But please help my YouTube channel because the YouTube channel actually drives everything else. So I know some of you are angry with YouTube and you don't want to watch on YouTube, but unfortunately, if you do not support me on YouTube, then the YouTube channel slows down, and that has a big impact on everything else. So whether I like it or not, the main visibility of getting the large audience currently is YouTube, but that may change if Rumble grows. It's currently not yet there. So I mean, for me, it may be for some other famous people on Rumble, but for me, my main population of followers and subscribers are still on YouTube, and 10% of them or so. No, I guess there's 20% of them are on Odyssey. So I have 79,000 subscribers on Odyssey. I have 370,000 on YouTube. So yeah. So anyway, okay. So what the Zuck is Locals? Well, we'll explain it when I do Locals. Locals.com. We'll explain that when we get there. So at the moment, let's not worry about it. We'll explain it when the time comes. Okay. So some other things I want to talk about. So is the Brax 2 phone. So I'm happy to say that we pretty much solved every problem on Brax 2 that we've been having in the past. Some percentage of you are being blocked by some carriers, and even I found out that even Ting.com is blocking IMEIs, even though they told me that. I was such liars. They told me that they don't block IMEIs, and they are, meaning the salesperson's telling me this, or the tech support don't even talk to the main office, and they're doing the blocking of IMEI. And it's obvious they were blocking IMEIs, but not consistently. I have no idea why. So we already know that Ting.com blocks IMEIs, Pure Talk blocks IMEIs, Cricket, Mint, T-Mobile blocks IMEIs for prepaid, AT&T blocks IMEIs for prepaid. Let's see, I don't know what Verizon blocks. It's kind of inconsistent information on Verizon. So clearly, here's the story, guys. You know, the carriers are playing a game, and they originally they said we're gonna block phones that are 3G from entering our network because we're gonna shut down those frequencies, and we don't want traffic from a 3G phone to come into the network. Okay, got that. So they start blocking IMEIs of phones that are 3G, but they didn't do that. They just said, no, we're gonna have a select list of phones, new phones, and we're gonna say we're gonna use this as an excuse to tell people, because this is a revenue source for them. We're gonna say you're gonna have to get a new phone because we want to sell you the phone, and then your old phone doesn't work, so you gotta get a new phone. So you have no choice. This is bullshit. Bullshit. So recently, I was told that some people with a Pixel 3 is a VoLTE phone, completely functional. How do I know it's completely functional? Because I have a Pixel 3 still in use. Completely functional. Everything works. Pixel 3 is just fine technologically. There is no issue with a Pixel 3. And because of its age, they started blocking Pixel 3s. Well, suck you, carriers. It's a scam, guys. It's a scam. We're being scammed, and they're using an excuse to do VoLTE. So suck them. Okay, they're playing this game, and there's no actual justification for doing this because the phones work on the network. Clearly it works because there's no issue. Works fine. So what exactly happened here? So what we found is that the Brax 2 phone is showing up as a BlackBerry. So the IMEI of a Brax 2 phone uses a BlackBerry IMEI, which obviously they're going to say, well, that's a BlackBerry Z10. that is not a VoLTE phone, so we can't support it. Well, the reality is the Brax 2 phone is 2022 phone, 2022. I mean, it's a new model. Okay, so yes, of course it has VoLTE. It's got everything. Okay, so because it's a new phone, we know it works. So they are arbitrarily stopping it by IMEI and saying, "Oh, we don't like your phone. It's 3G." BS. So all we have to do is, if you have a problem with that, because it seems by area, they're doing the IMEI limitation almost by tower. So I don't exactly know why. They're doing it by tower. Maybe it's depending on the available frequencies. They're not doing it in all areas. Like in my area here, my Brax 2 never had a problem with the old IMEI. Never had an issue. It always worked. It worked on Ting. Worked perfectly on T-Mobile. I'm using T-Mobile, and I tried, HTO Boost. Pure Talk didn't work. Partially worked. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, just ask us. We flash the IMEI into something else, so they see a different model. I'm the manufacturer. I can do whatever I want. Okay, so I'm flashing the IMEI for you, and yeah. And then it appears as a different model, and it works fine. Works perfectly. which tells you the fucking lie. I don't know what the more obvious lie is. If the phone works fine, we're just flashing the IMEI. Why did they block the IMEIs of phones to begin with? If the phone works, they should just say, oh, it works. The reason is they want to sell you a phone. That's one. And companies like Mint actually want to say, well, we don't want to do tech support, so we'll keep our prices at a certain level, but we're only going to work with iPhones and Google Androids and nothing else. Only on the top tier. We're not going to work with OnePluses and Chinese Motorola's and this. We're going to only deal with Samsung, LG, all the mainstream main brands, Apple, and then we're not going to do anything else. Changing IMEI is not illegal in the US. It's illegal in the UK. Not illegal in the US. Okay? But there's no actual, I mentioned this in the last live stream. IMEIs have no, there's no enforcement of what IMEI a manufacturer can put on the phone even. So if the manufacturer can't be enforced to put a IMEI on the phone of a certain type, many Chinese models, some of these small companies do not want to pay for the IMEI because you have to get a TAC code and you have to pay the GSMA organization, and you got to pay them many thousands of dollars for a TAC code. Then you got to go do under the table handing money to AT&T and so on, so they approve your IMEI. So it's all a fucking game. Okay, so because of that, you can't even enforce IMEI, policing, because the IMEIs are not enforced. So we don't actually know what IMEI is on a phone. What the manufacturer puts on there. Yeah. Mint Mobile, Ryan Reynolds is a tool. Oh, so correct. Sucking T-Mobile. It's just it's like. These are scammy organizations, really scammy. So I could change the IMEI on my Xiaomi to show as an iPhone. I don't know how to do it on your phone. That's the thing. Is flashing an IMEI requires you to have access to the database of the manufacturer. So if you do not have that database, then you can't flash it. Okay, so you have to have the Xiaomi database. It's called APDB base of that phone. So if you have that, yeah, you can flash it, but I don't have that. So for any model. So I have it for my model, which is Brax, the Brax 2 model. So if you I have it actually for some other models made by MediaTek. If it's a MediaTek motherboard, we may have that in the same database. Okay, but for other carriers that use different motherboards, I can't help you with it. You're going to have to search the internet for sources of, databases for your own phone. So to flash an IMEI, you need a database for it. Then you need a Windows computer, and then you need the proper cable. You got to get a USB with a black or blue tip at the end. Go to the end of that. That's got to be black or blue. And if you have a Brax 2, you can flash your own Brax 2 phone. You don't even have to talk to me. You can flash it with any IMEI you want. You can flash it with any phone you use. If you have an iPhone and you want to put that IMEI on your Brax 2, you can do it. Okay? Car and phone salesmen are interchangeable. So true. So true. So it's so scammy now. I mean, really. I mean, it's like, because they got a monopoly on you, they think. Because you go to the store and if every carrier says, well, we don't support your phone, and you're like, well, you got to buy one of our phones, and you don't know anything. So you're like, I've been scammed by Rob Braxman. He sold me a phone that doesn't work. It's like, suck that. Phone works fine. Okay, so we have the solution. The scamming is occurring at the carrier side. They're scamming us. Okay, they're scamming us. Potato chip bag can work. You can try it. Because, it's aluminum. So in theory, it should work. Okay. Okay, so just looking here if there's any significant comments on Rumble, people are just talking to themselves. It looks like there's not necessarily anything addressed to me. So I'll go back and look at that later. Okay. You want to see more tech vids. Okay, so well, show support. If the videos show a lot of traffic, then I'll do more of that kind of video. However, of course, it's very difficult to come up with some new discovery every week. I mean, I can't make a discovery every week. These things are kind of major. Last week's video is very major. Next week's video is an expansion on that topic, and it's also very techy, and it's about carriers. What do carriers see? Okay, it is techy. Requires a deeper understanding for sure, and you will get that. You will get that kind of tech detail on the next subject. Thank you, Technologic, for subbing on Rumble. So anyway, can you do a partnership with UK's Planet Computers on their Astro side phone? They have multi-boot firmware with Android and Linux. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty limited what I can do with sponsorships and things like that. Do you think every phone will go eSIM eventually? And yes, they will, and that it really bothers me. If we go eSIM, we are zucked. Okay, if we go eSIM, then we're going to have to make a software way to disable eSIM. That should be possible on a Brax 2 phone, for example. It may not be possible on iPhones and Google Androids. They don't want you to turn that off. So eSIMs are crap. So the two technologies we got to fear on the phone is 5G and eSIMs. Now 5G is not yet here. So even though they call 5G, it's 4.5G. Actually, on my Brax 2 phone, it says 4.5G. So it's not really 5G. So my Brax 2 phone supports 4.5G because it says so on the top. So yes, they're doing testing in limited areas of 5G. It's several years away. 2, 3, I don't know, somewhere around there. And once 5G is enabled, then the location logic will change, because then the tower will triangulate you with one tower. No, Wi-Fi is a problem too. Don't worry. That doesn't mean it's safe. What you need to do is think about using a different phone. Okay. So yes, the two different flavors of 5G has to do with how high the frequency is, but it's not it's if you're using the 6 gigahertz versus using the lower the 3 gigahertz ones, they're in two different areas. So currently the 5G is actually just LTE with multi-band. Okay, multi-band LTE is they call it 5G in the marketing, but I suppose you can just call it 4.5G. Okay, so that's multi-band. That's not the 5G with beamforming. They're not there yet. 5G with a beamforming is up in the 24 gigahertz and that high, and they're not there. I'm not even sure they can go there, because they were having some technical problems with that. So that's a whole different animal, and because it has a short range, they need more antennas to do beamforming. I have a 5G video you can watch, and then if you want to understand what that means. We're not on 5G yet. It's not yet time to panic. So you don't have to go to your phone and turn off 5G, and you don't have to be afraid of buying a 5G phone, because they're not really a 5G phone. Brax phone will work anywhere in the world. In fact, the standard Brax phone is international. So the only issues with Brax 2 phones have been in the US. There's no international issue. Okay? So yeah, it will work anywhere. Only get phones with removable batteries. Now, having said that, Japan uses Japan uses CDMA still in some areas. If they're not on LTE, well, obviously a Brax 2 phone is not a CDMA phone. So, you know, I don't know if all the carriers in Japan are CDMA. So there's no CDMA in the U.S. anymore. So they call themselves CDMA carriers, meaning Sprint and Verizon, but they're not really CDMA. They're LTE. Okay. So every phone currently that uses a SIM card is LTE. If your phone uses a SIM card, it's LTE. CDMA does not use SIM cards. The SIM card in CDMA is the equivalent of IMEI is in the phone. So you don't use a SIM card. So CDMA is actually pretty bad. It's like equivalent of having a permanent eSIM. So, but we don't use that anymore. So in the U.S., there's no more CDMA. CDMA was primarily used in the U.S. and some countries like Japan. But it's not elsewhere. Elsewhere in the world, we're all on GSM. Okay. My phone has 4 and 5G options. I won't select the 5. My home Wi-Fi. No. Cherry Lane, you're confusing Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. That has nothing to do with 5G. That's gigahertz. Cherry Lane, listen to me. That has nothing to do with 5G. It is 5 gigahertz. 5G means 5th generation. Okay? Completely a different topic. It only applies to cell baseband modems. It has nothing to do with Wi-Fi. Does the Brax 2 phone support T-Mobile's lower bandwidth of 600 or 7 megahertz? Yeah, of course. Yeah, Brax 2 phones are... again, there's some blocking of IMEIs with T-Mobile prepaid. In some areas, some localized areas, maybe ones using U.S. cellular towers. So if that's the case, just ask us to flash the IMEI, and I'll solve that. Just make a request before we ship. Can you reflash the IMEI? If we reflash the IMEI, your phone's going to come with an open box. Don't be afraid of that. Don't worry that the phone has an open box. You're going to be resetting it anyway. Okay, it's fine. Your phone's going to come with an open box. It's using Brax OS, which is taken from our servers. You can't really screw it up. 5 gigahertz is needed on your cell for decent speed. That has nothing to do with that. Okay. I don't know where you're using a CDMA flip phone that's not in the U.S. Then it's not CDMA. If you're using Motorola CDMA, then you're not using CDMA. Or you're not in the U.S. Okay. Okay. 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi goes further, but gives less bandwidth. Correct. So how does 5 gigahertz work? The reason it's fast is because 5 gigahertz is on Wi-Fi. It's multi-band, which is the same thing as 5G. The supposed 5G, which is not real 5G. The reason that works is because it's multi-band. So your traffic is sent on multiple channels on the radio, and then it appears to be faster because they split it up. So instead of downloading with one connection for, let's say, a 100 megabyte file, and you send it to one channel, you split it in 5 channels, and then it takes, so you essentially make 5 connections to the network, and then you only download, 20% of the bandwidth for each, so it comes and works faster. Thank you, AF1892. Way to connect a phone to Wi-Fi network, and the IP address not show up on the router. You need a VPN. That's all you need to do. VPN. Very simple. You always need a VPN. Okay. So yeah, if you're interested in your hiding your IP address, or alternatively AF1892, this is the alternative. If you don't care what your carrier can see, you're only concerned about what the IP address is at the other end, then just use the cell data, because the cell data will use an IP address that is shared by many, many people. Okay, so how does a VPN work on a phone? I mean, sorry, no, that's not what I just said. How does a IP address work on the phone? Okay, this will be in the next video, but I'm going to repeat this. Thank you, Rick Smith. Thank you. So let me explain this again to you guys, because this is not entirely clear. So, believe it or not, your phone does not have an IPv4 IP address. It doesn't. Go look at it. Go look at your phone, and you will find that your phone has an IPv6 address, starting with FEO whatever. Okay, it's going to be a very, very long number. Okay, alphabetical hexadecimal numbering system, very, very long. That is not an IPv4 address. Yet, when you go to a website, let's say you connect to google.com, google.com sees an actual IP address in IPv4 format. So therefore, it is clear that the IP address that's shown on the phone is not what they see on the Google side. So what actually happens? So this is something I had explained to you, because many of you do not understand this. The IPv6 address is only a local address within the phone network. Once you're going to be routed outside of that to the internet, the carrier will route you to a router. Okay, so let's say you're in Los Angeles, and some part of Los Angeles, let's say you're in East LA, a little section in there, and many of you are using the phone, and you're using the internet. Chances are many of you may be using the same IP address because you're using the same router. Okay, so you will appear to the carrier, to the website or platform that you're talking to. Let's say you're on Facebook, they will see that there are many of you with the same IP address, and you appear to be on mobile data, so they will know that the IP address is not valid. Okay, IP address is not valid. So actually, the IP address on cell data is not revealing anything to the end target on the internet. So if you're going to Facebook, Facebook doesn't see anything of interest, because the carrier took care of that and routed you to their router. However, the carrier sees your IPv6 address and sees that you're connected to that router, so they actually know you connected to Facebook. They actually know, they can see that you connected to Facebook from your IPv6 to Facebook. Only they can tell that. Facebook can't tell that you connected from that address. The carrier does. So if you're being tracked by a 3-letter agency, no problem. They just go connect to the carrier, and the carrier can identify the website you visited and what your original IPv6 is, and they'll find your phone exactly from the IPv6. Okay, some of these technical details are, they're kind of deep. It's subtle. Even the techies in here don't actually understand this. Many of you don't actually understand this, but you start look at your phone. It's using IPv6. Okay, look at your phone. It's doing IPv6, and IPv6 on your phone is likely going to be fixed. It's going to be a fixed address. Okay, so which means they're going to always know, the carrier is always going to know who you are. That's why you're here, Jace Ventura. Yes, so the detail is very deep. Some of you think that, some of you are, some of the trolls come in here, think that they really understand the technology, but they really don't, and they come in here and say, "Oh, this guy doesn't understand anything. He's saying 2FA is a bad thing," and it's like some sucking idiot. Somebody actually made a video calling me some scammer because I said that 2FA is bad in a video. They didn't even watch the video. They didn't watch the video because this is the dumb people in there. Okay. So without any kind of understanding, this guy made a video. I mean, he looks so stupid, making a video about me, saying that this guy is a scammer because he made a video saying 2FA is bad, and I'm in cybersecurity, and I'm a sucking expert, and I know that this site says this guy. I don't know. I didn't watch his video. I just saw the thumbnail. I'm a cybersecurity expert. And of course, 2FA is a good thing. It's like, what you're a sucking idiot. That's not what I said. Okay, a sucking idiot. I didn't say 2FA itself is bad. I'm saying 2FA is being abused by big tech. Certain players in big tech, Facebook, Google, Apple, they're abusing Microsoft. They're abusing 2FA. Instead of just using 2FA for what it was intended to do, was two-factor authentication, they're using it to spy on you. 2FA is being used as a piggyback to spy on you with other data to make sure that they get your phone identity and get your phone device IDs and Google ID and Apple ID to know everything else. That is actually what I was saying. So if your bank does 2FA, that's fine. Your bank is not that big tech company I'm worried about. The abuse doesn't come from the bank doing 2FA. The banks will likely need to use 2FA or some smaller platform. They're not the problem. The problem is Google, Facebook, Apple. These are the companies that abuse 2FA and are using 2FA to piggyback spyware by saying you have to use 2FA. But really, the only reason we want 2FA is not because we want to protect your phone. We just want to get your phone number. We want to get the ID of your device. We want to do all this. Because if they really wanted to protect you with 2FA, there is a simple solution that requires no special hardware, nothing. It's called TOTP, time-based one-time password. TOTP, like using Authy, even Google Authenticator. Some of these are based on these are based on time-based TOTP, time-based one-time passwords, and they don't require any specific device, meaning they don't get to spy on you because you don't give them any data. It's basically what is the term for that? Anyway, there's no data, there's no KYC associated with that 2FA. That's legit. If a site says we'll accept, a YubiKey only as 2FA, that's legit. We're going to accept TOTP on software as your 2FA. That's legit. But if they say you have to install the Google app to do 2FA, well, zuck you. Zuck you, Google. What does a Google app do? The purpose of a Google app on a Google phone is to spy on your IMSI and IMEI and MAC addresses and all the different little secrets in there and say, oh, we have identified your phone, so your phone is legit because we took the device identifiers and now that is matched to your Google ID. Well, zuck that. USB security keys are like a popular one is YubiKey. If a platform supports YubiKeys or similar platforms with FIDO, FIDO2, and all those FIDO3, they're fine. Those are good sites. That's good 2FA, and that's fine. Those are perfectly fine. Google and Facebook are not using it like that. Facebook is just looking for your phone number so they can track who you're connected to because they have contact lists. Google has your contact list, same, but they're not even caring about the phone number anymore. What Google wants is your device ID. Royal Calvin, zuck that. Are you saying zuck you is a bad word and you need to go talk to your priest and say, is zuck you a curse word? I think I have to convince a YouTube algorithm that zuck you is not a curse word. I think they finally realized that and stopped bugging me. They used to put a restriction on my videos every time I said Zaku. So, okay. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to say is that Google abuses 2FA. If they didn't want to abuse 2FA, they would just offer the option of TOTP, time-based one-time password. And if they did, then we know that there's no requirement for anything else. Okay? But they don't do that. Okay? So what else? Let me go to, that was a long rant, so let me go to so hydroxide, yes. So somebody just so hydroxide. You saw that comment from. You may see some comment from people who made that video, and then, there's so many of these scammers that calling me the scammer, but they're the real scammers, and giving you this information, and I'm pretty straight up. And if you actually watch my video, they're very deep. I don't actually do light videos. They're all very deep videos. And they're giving you a lot of information. So don't assume I'm stupid. One of them, so thank you, Hydroxide, for that comment. But let me just give you another example. I made many videos on proton mail. Oh gosh, so many haters on that because, the people on Matrix and, people who support the other de-Googled OS that made up of weird people, starts with a G. Oh, they're like big on proton mail. All of them, proton mail. And they're like, you sucking idiots. I mean, you don't even study. You go to a platform, you don't study the application, or maybe you don't understand because you don't have the brains for it. You're a cybersecurity expert, you don't understand because you don't have the brains to understand. And they go, this guy Rob Braxman, he's attacking proton mail, so therefore he's a scammer. It's like, suck you. Okay? Now I don't care if you use proton mail, but I'm just telling you, you're paying for proton mail without any benefit and just making yourself stick out. If you want to use proton mail, but don't come to me and say it's encrypted, because that's bullshit. All you're doing is saying, hey, it's three-letter agencies, come watch me, since 99% of my email is not encrypted, but I'm on proton mail, so target me please and go look at my email, which is not encrypted, and you can spot them on the internet all over the place. And target me because I'm in the nothing to hide group. Okay, you want that? Go to proton mail. Yeah. So yeah, can you use proton mail safely? Yes, but in such a limited way. So because the use is so limited, it's not even worth it. I mean, you might as well just use something else. Like XMPP. Or Signal, or Signal in some cases, but XMPP is best for everything. So just so you understand that, there's just the people who attack me and talk nonsense. Here's another one. It's so-called that's why the cybersecurity, certain low-level cybersecurity folks, not the high-level ones that are in this channel, but certain low-level cybersecurity folks, again, attack me on my video because I said, don't use a Zaki antivirus. Don't use a Zaki antivirus. It's my video. And people say, what? You need to use an antivirus. And then they spot all these different variations. You need to use the McAfee antivirus. You need to use Norton 360 and this and that. Like, suck. You want to be scammed by company? Go install Norton 360, and even if you cancel your subscription, they will keep billing you forever and ever. That's how they make zacking money. It's totally that company. The reason that Symantec failed, and Symantec had to be disbanded, selling one side of it to Broadcom, and then the other side to remain as Norton 360 or Norton, is because they screwed up because they're a immoral company. So Yeah, go install that antivirus. And what are you doing? You're not doing anything. And the reason people argue with me is like, hey, I study cybersecurity and it's and antivirus defenses and that. Well, the information that I have about antivirus came from the Zucking WikiLeaks, from the CIA documents on WikiLeaks. There's actual documents there talking about the flaws, and it was the CIA telling people about the dangers of antivirus, and it was on WikiLeaks. This is CIA saying the dangers of antiviruses, which is something that they do seminars for all the insiders and the three-letter agencies to say, hey, don't use these antiviruses. They can all be hacked and so on. They're not actually providing you with any safety. They're actually opening up windows for attack. This is the kind of stuff that I talk about, and some stupid guy will say that I know nothing. It's like, some of these people. Zucking IA, yes, great gold. So some of these people, I mean, they have no fucking idea the kind of level of understanding you have to do what I do here. So are there any people with the level of understanding that I do on YouTube? Probably not on YouTube. I'm sure there are other people who have, but on YouTube, no. Well, it's not true. There are some people with the knowledge but don't want to step in there. I think Steve Gibson knows what he's talking about. He definitely knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't take a side because it's going to steal from the profits of their channel because they're sponsored by corporate entities. Okay. So I'm just telling you about the people who. About what I talk about, and think I'm just some low level here with low level information, that I'm scamming you in some way, and it's like, fuck you. You're the one that doesn't understand, and that's why I don't support certain platforms and certain things. If I don't mention it, then I must not be supporting it. Okay, there are many. There are like phone manufacturers that come up with stuff, and certain providers of services. For example, some people tried out, and I'm gonna. Do you have opinion about XX Messenger? No. Thank you, Rick Smith. Some of you have see, I forget what it is. That's the problem. If I have to read a comment, then I forget what I'm talking about. Anyway, it'll come back to me. You can be very smart and very good at what you do and still be stupid. Well, the problem is people have typically very limited knowledge. In cybersecurity, you're typically dealing with very narrow bands of knowledge. And many people, if they're going to make money in cybersecurity, they especially hackers of certain types that want to be well known in cybersecurity, will focus on certain topics and dig into that very, very deeply and specialize in it. It doesn't mean they have the big picture. No, Seamus, I am not connected with any government whatsoever. Okay, so in my case, I don't operate from that level. You kind of have to look at me as a intelligence agency on your side. I'm your intelligence agency because I do I look for clues. I do signals detection and seeing where the signals lead me. Where the smoking guns. Does it quack like a duck? That kind of thing. and that's where that focuses my analysis, and so we don't always have to work from pure knowledge, but we can make assumptions based on what the facts show. So that's the way I operate. It's almost like the proper term is reverse engineering. I look at the concept of technology and say, if I were the bad guy, how would I use this? And I would reverse engineer a problem. And I say, okay, somebody wants to track you using Bluetooth. How would I do that? And of course, I came up with the idea that, hey, they're going to track you with, like contact tracing and do a mesh network to connect one device to the other, and you're able to then track using the mesh network with Bluetooth BLE, which has actually a direction finder. So, and guess what? That's what Apple did. Apple Mesh Network. Okay. I was talking about that before I knew about the Apple Mesh Network. In fact, if you watch my video, I was talking about that on Apple Sidewalk. Because that's the way I work. I understand the technology deep enough. I look at the source code. I look at the way it works. I understand the technology and what it can do. I have special understanding of radio frequencies because I'm a ham radio license operator. I have a general license, so I understand, radio frequencies specifically. So and this is why I can focus on phones and things, because I understand what happens there. So I was doing wireless Wi-Fi in 1990. Yeah. There was no such thing back then. There was no wireless Wi-Fi in 1990, except for the few of us that had devices being tested. And we had the prototypes. In fact, our prototype we put in production in 1990. And we were, in fact, one of those projects were funded by CTIA. So my project was funded by CTIA, the cellular telephone, what is CTIA? Cellular whatever organization. It's the organization of cell companies, CTIA. So, so I was doing that. We're doing wireless. We're understanding the problems with wireless. It was so slow back then. Wireless connections were very, very slow in 1990. And I go back that far. I was one of the initial people that did that, and I had hands-on and all the limitations of the batteries and everything else and range. We had to figure that out because we were the first. We were, and guess what we were using in 1990? We were using wireless tablets. Using a pen, like an iPad. Did you know that there were such devices in 1990? Well, I was using them because we actually put my software on it. It was demonstrated by Bill Gates himself. We were showing off that product using a wireless tablet with no keyboard, just pen-based. Operates with a pen, and this was in 1990, except it was way ahead of its time. So, way ahead of its time. So, some of you think, oh, iPads came out in, I don't know, when did they come out? 2010 or whenever. And so you're thinking all these tablets are from 2010, and you didn't realize we were playing with them 20 years before. Yeah, go ask Bill Gates. Yeah, we were playing with tablets in 1990. Yeah, I remember having to visit Microsoft for that. Yeah, so I had to go to Redmond. So, so anyway, it's I hate, talking about what I do in my past, because, I don't want to spend my time acting like I'm boasting about anything. I'm just explaining what I know so that you can judge for yourself if you're supposed to take what I say lightly, because it's what I teach you come from understanding. I'm not telling you this from some imaginary base. I'm telling you a base of knowledge that comes so deep that there's actually no YouTuber at that kind of level among the top YouTubers that does this kind of stuff. And like I said, one of the old timers is Steve Gibson, so I'm sure he's pretty deep into that too. But other than him, some of these other guys, come on, what do they actually know? What do they know? Please, guys. Are you actually going to believe young kids like, the lore guy? The lore guy? You're going to, I heard he spoke against me. Okay, you're going to talk to people like that. You say, oh, I got to follow this channel. He's like, he has good stuff. Yeah, right. Or the outlaw guy. Is that his name? Outlaw? Very low level cybersecurity discussions, and people are like flocking to this, and it's like very low level kind of data, not anywhere near the kind of stuff I'm showing you here. Okay, so just do a comparison of the level. Just look at the last video. In fact, I can show you a ton of videos like that level, and tell me how many people make videos at the level that I do with all the detail that I tell you. So anyway, zuck that Freedom phone. They just want to charge you more money. It's just a standard de-Google phone, like a variation Lineage OS with a tag the Freedom phone. It's like Lineage OS. Okay, so that's not how Brax OS is. Brax OS is not from Lineage OS. EOS is from Lineage OS. Okay, Brax OS is not from that. It doesn't have those roots. Brax OS is separate and from the ground up, actually a modified Android, direct from Android, open source. So the roots of Brax OS is not very light. It's deep. That's why we can do things. We have the same capability as any of the other players. We make our own choices. We may not make the same choices as Calix or somebody else, but we have the capability to put anything we want because we control the OS. Okay. Yes, Freedom phone is. I'm sure it's some variation of Lineage, maybe a repackaged Lineage. So I'm sure it's not that sophisticated. So yeah, they probably do supl.google.com. Okay. So anyway, there's a lot of deep stuff in this channel. So follow me. Brax 2 has dual SIM, of course. I use MIT and proxy to decrypt and see what location data is being exchanged with a SUPL backend. No, that's not good enough. You don't know what goes on the baseband side because it can use both, and it's built into the hardware. So we don't have any actual, proof of that. Now we can see the site. In fact, you can firewall the site on the internet side, but we don't know what goes on the baseband side. So if you block it on the baseband, on the Wi-Fi side, you'll actually shift and use the baseband side, and that's what we don't understand is when it does shift. You can use prepaid SIM if you on Brax 2 if you tell us in advance and we flash the phone in advance. Okay, you have to make a request to pre-flash the phone. We'll send you an open phone that we pre-flash with a different IMEI, and that will work in prepaid. Because we have to battle these carriers that do filtering by IMEI. Again, to remind you who they are Mint, Cricket, Pure Talk, T-Mobile prepaid, AT&T prepaid. Those are the top targets. Some Verizon. Okay, well, we can overcome them all. They all seem to work. You have an issue? No problem. I'll exchange your phone. You can flash the IMEI yourself if you want. You don't have to wait for a phone. And then it's all done. Straight Talk does it too? Yes. Straight Talk is AT&T. I think, isn't it? H2O and Boost, no problem. I didn't have a problem with any of those. Brax 2 has 4 gigabytes, I believe. I don't have a problem with anything Canadian or anything that's not non-US. The IMEI limitation is the US specific thing. Okay, so it's only in the US. Okay, we're out of time. I got 1 minute. So I'm just gonna close out and say that the next video will talk about what can the carriers see. Are the carriers watching you? I don't know what the title is yet, but along those lines, what can the carriers see about you? Are they tracking you? What information do they know about you? And is there a way to stop that? And it's only the carrier. We've been attacking big tech, big tech, big tech, big tech. Big tech's a bad guy, but what about the carrier? The carrier was the one involved with the prison program and all the mass surveillance that Snowden revealed, and that's all with the carriers. So what can they see today? It's changed. So you need to know that, and that is the next video. Is the iPad as dangerous as the phone? No, because it doesn't have a baseband modem. Okay, guys. So we're gonna stop this shortly here. So no, an iPad is not as dangerous. It's still dangerous. It's from Apple, but it's not as dangerous because it doesn't have a baseband modem. Okay, so thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.